Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Dynastic Buddies podcast. I am your host, Paul Clement, here on July 30th. August just around the corner. Every team is now reported for training camp. So we are into it, folks. I think we are something like, is it 6 weeks away from kickoff, Bobby? So,
Yeah, I think it's less than 50 days now at this point,
yeah,
so we're getting there. It's exciting.
hell yeah. So, uh, welcome, of course, Bobby Briscoe, my prestiged co-host on a great evening here, heading into a long weekend for us Canadians. I forget if the U.S. has a long weekend here too, but it doesn't matter.
Who's
Um,
keeping track?
no, not I. So another fantastic episode for everybody tonight. We are going to be getting into our wide receiver rankings, 1 through 12, and we're going to put a little twist on it because we want to make it interesting. We don't just want to follow the crowd and go off the ADP or anything like that. So we're going to have a little debate when we disagree on when it comes to a certain ranking. So we're going to do that. But before that, lots of news already filtering in through training camp. So lots to dig into. Even though we're not even in the football season yet, it's going to be a great one, folks. We hope you enjoy. And before we do any of that, we have to say cheers on a Monday night. Let's get it cracking, Bobby. All right, everybody. So let's get right into it in terms of our news and, of course, our beers first. Looks like
Beers
a new
first,
one.
as I always remind you.
Looks like a new one, Bobby. What do we have?
This is a new one. So this brewery I mentioned before, Gather, it's that one down in Merrickville. That's the brewery slash glass blowing place. I've featured a few of their beers on the podcast before. This one's a hazy pale ale.
Hmm.
Glass blowers assistance, it's called. Kind of a bit of an interesting aftertaste on this one. It's got almost a citrusy thing going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
quite nice. Good for I wouldn't want to crush a bunch of these, but for sitting and having one, it's a good sit and have one and sip on it kind of beer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Hazies usually want to throw a little bit of citrus in there. So, yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm
hmm
just on my Grolsch as always. Not
hmm
always, but, you know,
as often.
as often as it can be. Uh, let's get into some news, everybody. This just came in today. This was breaking news. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet, Bobby, but
I haven't seen it, so
yeah,
excited to
so
talk about this.
Chris Olave signs his extension with the New Orleans Saints. I believe it was $134 million over 4 years, something to that effect.
hmm
So I think the annual average is 33. I'm sure there's some funky math in there, but congratulations to Chris Olave for securing a pretty decent, not market-setting contract by any means, but a very big vote of confidence, I think, from the Saints for a player who's had some questionable injury history up until now.
Yeah, I mean he's in line to be the guy there this year, and so that's a contract that is in keeping with that. But like you said, it's not hugely breaking the bank or anything. So yeah, good deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
good for him.
the Saints are starting to get to a point where they can start making some actual good contracts now that they're getting out from under a lot of these ones that they've been just kicking the can down the road for a long time. So obviously want to invest in that number one option for their quarterback, I should say. And I think you and I are in lockstep here. Like Chris Olave, in my eyes, is going to continue to be the one in New Orleans for the foreseeable future. I like the Jordan Tyson addition. I think he plays second fiddle to Chris Olave at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So next piece of news, we've got Chris Brazel. It looks like they've opted for surgery on that torn LCL, so he will be out for the season. I had remained hopeful that he would just be out the 8 weeks, which was initially reported. Doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. So we are back to Tet McMillan, uh, Jalen Coker, and Xavier Legette in Carolina for this season, and we're going to have to wait to see what happens with the explosive receiver out of Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, and another piece of news coming out of San Francisco. Ricky Pearsall, after 2 days of working through it at training camp, it does appear that the knee that he was having issues with last season from a slight PCL, I think it was a partial PCL tear. I don't think it was full, but it does sound like that there's swelling coming up in that knee that is going to sideline him in some capacity at this point. They like the verbiage on the headline is they are pursuing all options, whatever that means. So whether that's stem cell treatments, whether that's surgery, whether that's I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but
Yeah.
it does sound like things are pretty grim for Ricky Pearsall early on in camp already.
I was about to say that the 49ers can't catch a break, but it seems like it continues to be all that they can catch is breaks. Yeah, unfortunate news for them. I was hopeful that that team would be coming back a little bit healthier, but that's kind of a, I mean, in terms of injuries on the team, I think you can overcome a Ricky Pearsall injury. However, not a good leg to be starting on in terms of having had such an injury riddled season as a team last year to have right at the start things not looking good and not getting good news. So
Yeah, and with having had an off season to treat this, to rehabilitate it, you would have hoped that this would be behind him. And I'm happy that the guy that I was making a trade offer for Ricky Pearsall was being irrational in what he was asking for. So that never went through. But
mhm,
I think this is good news, and even more. This gives me more confidence in Mike Evans, in Dejon Stribling potentially,
mhm.
and some of these other receiving options that they have there.
Yeah, oh for sure. Yeah, definitely there's going to be more volume to those guys. Although again, do you really want someone like Mike Evans having to handle more volume, right? I don't know that that's necessarily good for, the injury concern. So,
I think I saw Christian Kirk is also hurt now, so it's really they may not have a choice. They may have to rely on Dejon Stribling. They may have to rely on Mike Evans. So
yeah.
uh, they, like you said, they cannot catch a break. Um, yeah, like we said, folks, we're going to try and get through these talking points quickly so we can get into our rankings because there is so much already after a couple days of training camp, but we're almost there. Uh, Baker Mayfield has kind of closed conversations on his extension he was hoping to get done before the season. Not not friendly language from what I've seen in his answering of the question, but professional language in the fact that he understands, hey, now it's football time. Let's focus on the season. Let's see how you feel after I have my best season yet, is kind of his
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah.
So that's the only attitude you can have at this point. I do appreciate the professionalism he has when it comes to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things are kind of in a bit of a state of flux there too. So, see how the season goes, and then again, if you're Baker, you're assuming that you're going to perform to the level that I know he feels he's capable of performing of, and that we've seen before from him. And if that happens, then more dollar signs, right? So,
Yeah,
see what happens.
he could reset the market. If not, I'm not. That would be egregious and aggressive. But we've seen it happen when a quarterback has leverage and a team doesn't want to end up back in the desert of not having a quarterback.
He
Sometimes
could
you end up with a Dak
certainly
Prescott, right?
Yeah, he could certainly find his way into, maybe not a market reset contract, but like a top dollar for quarterback contract,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
So fingers crossed that he can stay healthy and actually perform to what we're hoping for. Um, Next line item here, Tucker Kraft now targeting week one as a potential start. It looks like he's currently still on the training camp pup, but looking to elevate out of that relatively soon. So
Mhm.
as a Tucker Kraft owner, Bobby, how are we feeling?
He'll be fine. Guy's a beast. I'm not worried. He'll be back. He'll be trucking over people. It's all great in Packerland.
Okay,
That
I
is
I
not an objectionable or rational take. That's a pure fan take.
yeah,
So that
when
way
so
you will.
and we're allowed to be fans.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of fandom, I was a big fan of Tank Dell when he was coming out. He was one of those. It was a year where I had traded away a lot of picks in Dynasty, and I had two third-round picks. One of them was Chase Brown, and one of them was Tank Dell. And of course, what did I do but trade them both away? But Tank Dell seems to be cleared for training camp from the videos that we've seen. He's looking quick, looking nimble, hopefully all recovered in that knee. But to remind people how gruesome it was basically everything in that knee had to be surgically repaired,
Yeah.
and he's been away for
He's
about a year and a
bionic at
half.
this point. Yeah. Yeah.
So I sent you the video. I asked if you saw any hitch, and I thought I saw a slight hitch in some of those cuts, but I think you and I have talked about this, like the seemingly big downfall from CJ Stroud really happened after this injury, because he and Tank Dell came into this team together. He
Yeah.
fe-
They're
he
they're
featured
boys.
him.
They're buds, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, one of the players that I really had high hopes for in the league can get back and get right.
Mhm.
And then finally, I'm not sure what to make of this, Bobby, but this report coming out that Zach Charbonnet could be in line to be available for Week 1 seems aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is just like camp hype or somebody in his camp getting word out that he's trending that way. But like even with modern science, this would be a new bar to set in terms of recovery
Yeah.
from an ACL.
So could be some camp hype, and to a degree, this is like part of the chess game of football too, right? You want your opponents to be having to think more, right? And even if internally you know that yeah, there's no chance in hell that Zach Charbonnet is seeing the field in week one, if he's like reasonably healthy enough to get off the IR, you're probably saying, oh yeah, he's available, right? Yeah, definitely scheme a defensive plan and waste time doing that for Zach Charbonnet. We know he's not seeing the field, but you waste your time on that, right?
Yeah,
So it could be a little bit of gamesmanship too, right? It could be optimism from Charbonnet and his camp as well that he wants to get back out there as soon as possible, and he's going to do everything he damn well can to be ready for week one, even if
yeah.
that doesn't end up coming to fruition, that's the goal. So could be, a bunch of different things going on here. But yeah, like you said, it seems real quick given the degree of injury that he had. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Does it do anything for you when it comes to Jadarian Price's price right now?
Mm,
He's current,
Not
yeah,
really.
he's kind of going in that middle of the sixth round right now.
Yeah, yeah. I think, if you're thinking about price, you're presuming that, at some point Charbonnet is coming back anyway, right? So you're presuming his value with a timeshare in mind, and like the more weeks you get where it is priced at the start of the year, the better. But I think you're planning that this is a timeshare situation, kind of, as you're making that pick, or at least I think you should be. So
Okay, fair enough. You know what? We're on good pace right now. We're vibing pretty good. So let's just keep it going. If we need to take a little bit of a breather, we'll do so halfway through our rankings. How's that sound, Bobby?
sounds great to me. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, hell yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, everybody, is Bobby has done the courtesy of putting out his top 12 wide receiver rankings, which we'll go through down the line here. I am going to put what I'm going to do is when I disagree with some of Bobby's rankings, I'm going to propose someone else in that place. So, just a chance to see if I can sway Bobby's mind, make it a fun debate, make it a good conversation rather than just reading off names that are down the ADP line. So, what off the top here, Bobby? Who do you have in your number one spot?
I think it should be no surprise to anybody based on how much I ran and rave about this player. And of course, he was a staple on my dynasty team ever since he was a rookie as well. Jamar Chase is my number one wide receiver. I think already seeing we have some disagreement here. I think for me, the big thing with Chase this year is Joe Burrow, actually. Joe Burrow being back, healthy, and the connection that those two have. So, presuming everybody is healthy, we've seen what those two can do together, and I expect more of the same. Chase put up fourth overall wide receiver numbers largely without Joe Burrow last year. So with him, I think the ceiling is right where we expect it to be. And the other thing too, I don't think that there is any player in the league who can put up as explosive of individual weeks as Jamar Chase can. There are the odd times where he can just explode for 50, 55 points for you. And when those things happen, that's winning the week for you. So it's a very high floor, it's a high ceiling, and it can go through to the stratosphere sometimes for you. So I think all those things combined, yeah,
Yeah,
windmill slam down Chase.
yeah, I think for a guy that hasn't finished outside the top five in his position since he came into the league, that's a pretty fairly fair place to put him. Um, I am going to give you a little nugget here in terms of why I think Puka Nakua would be my number one wide receiver overall. And he finishes the wide receiver two last year. He is part of a prolific offense, and I think the consolidation of targets in this offense is kind of one thing you can kind of use to tilt towards Puka Nakua. It's literally Puka Nakua, Devontae Adams, and then they use their three tight ends in some way. So if they're looking for wide, the the way that Sean McVay uses this guy, he averages at least double-digit targets over the course of a season, just much like Jamar Chase. Definitely not going to take that away from Jamar Chase. But this is a guy who just feasts on receptions. He catches everything. His yards after the catch is probably on par with Jamar Chase in terms of taking a catch and just making it a touchdown. And he makes some of the most incredible catches. Obviously, those are hard to track year over year, but at the same time, he has how many touchdowns did he have last year? So last year was his best year with 10 touchdowns. Jamar Chase has historically done very well in the touchdown category. I think he had 17 maybe 2 seasons ago or maybe 3 seasons ago, whatever it was. Just both of these guys belong in the same
Yeah,
tier in my
17 2 years ago. Yeah.
yeah. So I think if Puka Nakua takes a handful of those goal line touchdowns from Devontae Adams, who is another year older, was kind of inefficient with some of his catching statistics. If Puka Nakua just bumps up a little bit in that touchdown category, now he and Jamar Chase are literally a 50-50 coin toss that uh, I don't think you could go wrong. I think we're both going to be pretty happy with either one of these players when it comes to the first receiver off the board. I wouldn't be shocked by either of these guys.
Yeah, no, and so you're kind of spoiling my second overall pick because my second overall pick is Puka Nakua. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the number one overall wide receiver as well. But yeah, I think maybe I'm showing a little bit of my personal bias here. In fact, I'm sure I am showing some of my personal bias and putting Chase first. I think the other factor with Puka.
He's treated you well in your
Yeah,
time.
no, he certainly has. Yeah, he's won me two championships basically. I think the other thing with Puka is just I have a little bit more of a question mark around him as a person and as an individual, and that's really pulling straws and looking through with a fine tooth comb there, because at the end of the day, I don't really think any of that's going to matter. But I think familiarity and safety with Chase is why I give the nod to him as opposed to Puka. So
Bold words coming from a Jamar Chase player who just started a team-wide brawl the other day. Um,
well, listen,
it's training camp.
it's
So
great.
looking at the tiers here, I have Puka and Jamar Chase in the same tier. You have Chase by himself. Do you want
Yeah, I do
to?
because I'm windmill slamming him as number one overall all day, every day. Like if I
Okay,
have a first overall pick in my work league or something like that, I'm taking Jamar Chase.
your
So
mind is made up.
yeah,
Understood.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I think realistically, the first four wide receivers here are probably should all be the same color. I think just because those are the guys who should be going at the top end of the first round.
Yeah,
But
I could agree with you. So let's get into our number three. Who's number three for you, Bobby?
my number three is JSN. I think it's. I debated this one. I kind of waffled on putting him at third or not. I think he is definitely a candidate for some regression this year. I don't think he's going to do again what he did last year. But even if he doesn't, if there's still enough of that there next year, he's still definitely worth a high end first round pick, and definitely will be a number one wide receiver on your team, right? So yeah, that's why I went with him there. Expecting a little bit of regression, but also giving a nod to what he did last year as well.
Right on, man. I agree with everything. I feel like you and I have talked about JSN at length over different episodes, so we're gonna have a lot of the same talking points here. I agree with most of that, and I think that's why, especially when it comes to just the regression that is probably due,
Mhm.
the target percentage was up at like 35% or something like that. The efficiency was incredible. I think we people just assume it's going to be the same scheme, but there's a new offensive coordinator in town.
Mhm.
And even if they stick to a lot of what worked last year, there's going to be some new wrinkles that are going to try to get other players involved so that JSN doesn't have to carry the whole team to the playoffs and the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's so I actually like Amon-Ra St. Brown as the number 3 receiver. And again, we're picking nits here because we have them back to back in these rankings, but Amon-Ra St. Brown has done nothing but finish as the wide receiver 4 in like the last 3 seasons. So that kind of consistency is absolutely insane. And the fact that they've now moved him, not just like they haven't just been using him in the slot. Now they're using these more condensed formations where he's on the outside, gives him a whole new piece of the field to work with.
Mhm.
I heard a stat like I think he what was the stat? It was something. Is his red zone target rate was probably as good as anybody else's in the league over the last couple seasons. I forget the exact numbers, but when you watch it, it's true. Like they use
Yeah.
him in the red zone as a weapon to go along with just being a PPR scam. He's never caught fewer than 100 balls, other than maybe his rookie season, and he's always hovering around that 1,400-yard mark. They use him in the screen game. He's literally the focal point of this offense,
Mhm.
and that's all to say that the Detroit Lions also have one of the easiest schedules this season
Yeah.
against both running and passing offenses. So I'm going to give him
So
I'll give him the nod here over JSN.
yeah, I don't disagree with that. And this is maybe one time where you're convincing me to change my rankings here, and I will do it. I'll
Okay.
I'll I'll bop JSN down, and I'll put Amon Ra up because I had Amon Ra fourth, and I will now
I
put JSN
I
to,
think he's going to I think he's going to break into the top 3 this year. I really
well,
believe
he's
it.
been number three the last 3 years in a row.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even
Um,
number 4. I thought it was number 4.
Yeah, well, at least what I'm seeing here on Fantasy Pros has him
Okay.
as number three the last 3 straight years. I'm
Even
not
better.
sure if you remember this, but in the last iteration of this podcast, when we were making bold predictions, I think ahead of last year's season,
Mhm.
I picked my bold prediction was Amon Ra as wide receiver number one on the year.
Mm.
So I've been very high on this guy. I think for me, the big thing that I see between the two of these players is that I like the floor on JSN perhaps a little bit more, and I
Mhm.
like the ceiling on Amon Ra a little bit more. I think there's more
Interesting.
opportunity for, and that's not a knock on Amon Ra's floor by any means. I think it's just that there is um, more opportunity for Amon Ra to potentially be wide receiver number one. And I think JSN is going to regress, and I don't think he's going to repeat that. So,
Yeah, I JSN was looking like Tyreek Hill out there, how easy it was for him to get behind defenses. I just think that with a year of film, hopefully defensive coordinators are marking, hey, don't go for this kind of head fake that he does. Don't bite on this little move that he does. Don't don't be chasing him downfield when he's not getting the ball because he's pretending to like the ball's coming to him. Like I don't know if you saw
yeah,
that clip, but
yeah, yeah,
he's such a good storyteller with his routes. It really is fun to watch. But I think there is going to be a continued focus on running the ball in Seattle.
yeah,
Obviously, the first round draft pick at running back is maybe some indication of that. But like Sam Darnold, we talked about this. This is why we don't have to spend forever on it. But um, I think Sam Darnold was how many times did he pass for more than 30 dropbacks? Like that's a the pie is small, And if there's any leakage of that pie into AJ Barner, into Rashid
Mhm.
Shaheed, into more of these double tight end sets, like if any of that happens, there's going to be some regression. So, um,
I think the thing, and this is maybe why I say, I think you just touched on it a little bit with saying Shahid. I think that is why I like the floor with JSN a little bit more, is just because he's facing a little bit less competition in that lineup for touches at wide receiver than St. Brown is. Because I like Jamison Williams as a wide receiver as well. I think, he's certainly going to get his touches, whereas like, Shahid, Cooper Cup, the ghost of Cooper Cup, like,
yeah.
I think JSN is going to be a little bit more looked to. But again, that could be a bad thing too, right? Because again, as you're saying, defense has film on him now. They're going to be keying on him a little bit more too, right? So
Hmm. Okay, good. Um, okay, so that was the end of your second tier. Your second tier, you had Puka, AS, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and JSN.
mhm.
Um, I'm going to keep that second tier going for just a little bit longer here, and we both
Mhm.
agree on CeeDee Lamb being
CD
our
Lamb,
number 5 wide receiver this year.
yeah.
Uh,
The
Go ahead.
reason I tiered here is just like the way I think about tiers is I think about where am I trying to get these guys in a draft, and
Sure.
actually where I draw the line, and it's interesting how our dynasty draft played out, is I actually look at like the middle of the round as the tier split. It's not the end of the round; it's the middle of the round
Yeah.
is where I look at it as the tier split. So towards the end of the round, if you're 8, 9, 10, you're getting a wheel, right? You're getting two looks at players. So to me, that feels a little bit more cohesive. As a, again, on the other side, you're getting two looks at players that are kind of the top end of the round. So I look at those more as my tier splits. Like the middle of the round is where I'm thinking as the tier split. So
Okay.
anyway, CD and the next guy that I have on the list here, I'm looking at as trail end of the first round, maybe even sneaking into like you can wheel them in the top end of the second round, depending on how things are shaking out. Type of players, if it's a 10 team or 12
Okay.
team, and all those kind of fiddly things. But definitely in the first round, yeah, CD Lamb is my number 5. Lot to love about CD as a player. We've seen what he can do before. The thing that puts him over the top of the other players is quarterback again here. Dak's there. Dak's throwing him the ball. And I like that better than the situation for the next player on this list. So that's what's putting him over the hump here.
Yeah. A high-powered offense, a strong offense, a bad defense. We have to remember that. Which
They're going to need to air out.
so
Mhm.
I wish I had some per game stats here, but I, I don't have to look further than the fact that it was only a couple years ago that CeeDee Lamb was the number 1 overall fantasy football player. He
Mhm.
was lighting it up on the scoreboard. I understand that George Pickens is solidly in this mix now as that potential 1B potential option, but when I've, again, I wish I had all these stats that I just heard today in front of me. But when CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens both played, it was George Pickens who played second fiddle. Like
Yeah.
his average of fantasy points per game went down significantly when him and CD played in the same game. So
Yeah.
I believe CD Lamb is more. I think George Pickens could be used in a versatile way. They just choose to kind of stick him out on the boundary for the most part. And CD Lamb is just he's such a dynamic player from all these different positions across the offense. He gets like what was it, 200 or 300 rushing yards in a given season on top of his receiving production. Like
Yeah.
they love giving him the ball as a
Yeah.
jet sweep or otherwise. It's he's he's a very good player. I think if this offense, if the defense, well, it doesn't matter. Like the defense is probably still not perfectly suited to stopping people consistently. So if there's a lot of shootouts, you can bet your house that CeeDee Lamb is going to be a major part of any potential uh, Dallas Co- Dallas Cowboy comeback.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I really do enjoy him in this range. I think this could be one of the better deals of the draft. Because like
Mhm.
what's the difference between CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and Jamar Chase and T Higgins? What's the
Yeah,
difference?
and it's a very similar situation. I mean, I like George Pickens more than T Higgins, obviously, but yeah, there's no reason that an offense like this can't support two top end wide receivers, and I think it will. So
Perfect. Okay, number 6. You're up, Bobby.
JJ, yeah. I mean, we all know what kind of player he is. I think the main thing that is keeping Justin Jefferson down this low on the rankings is the situation in Minnesota. Who's throwing him the ball, right? How is Kyler Murray going to work out there? Is it going to be JJ McCarthy coming in at some point? Like, what's going on there with that? So yeah, I think just not a great team situation is hampering the player, but we all know the level of talent that this player has. He was, let me just check season stats here. He was number one wide receiver in 22, so 4 years ago, and in 24 he was number two. So and then in 23 he wasn't healthy that year, and that hurt his rankings. So up until last year he was consistently that guy, and he still is that guy. It's just the team's kind of shit around him right now.
Yeah, the the offensive line last year was not great for Justin Jefferson. They put all this investment into bringing in some new players, drafting some players, and I think they never once saw the field altogether. Those starting 5 offensive linemen
Yeah,
to go along with just abysmal quarterback play. And the funny thing is, I think my view of JJ McCarthy is kind of skewed because I actually saw a couple Minnesota Viking games down the stretch, and I thought he started to play a little bit better. I kind of didn't really see the Minnesota Vikings all that much during the beginning of the season, where apparently it was just unwatchable football. So I think the upgrade to Kyler Murray is definitely important. We've seen Kyler Murray boost kind of that number one receiver to
yep.
top 5 status. I get all those arguments. I'm going to make an argument,
So
however. Oh, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so I was just gonna say, so that's that. Those are the things that are the reason I'm keeping him at 6, and and just again the raw talent that is JJ. All right, sell me on Drake London here.
Yes. So I have Drake London at number 6, and I think you and I both kind of look at this exercise through sort of a dynasty lens. We both have keeper leagues. We both have dynasty leagues. So I like Drake London in this spot. He was trending to be the wide receiver 2 last year before he tore his PCL. And you look around the room and it's like John Travolta in that meme, just like who's like what? Like
Mhm.
so it's him, it's Kyle Pitts, it's Bijan Robinson. And if you look at the consistency, or like if you look at the high value targets in an offense, a lot of it's going to be stuff over the middle where he excels. He's a big, tough receiver. He kills on dig routes, which if him and I guess it sounds like two. This didn't even make the news because there was so much news, but Tua is apparently dealing with some back flare up right now as well. So I don't know who the quarterback situation could just completely blow this out of the water, and this
Yeah,
might make me look stupid. But I think Drake London is starting to solidify himself in this range as just a playmaker. He'll go up and absolutely head top guys. He he checks every box when it comes to being a wide receiver in the NFL, and he does it at a high level. I do appreciate his skill set kind of more than some of these other guys down the line, and just the target competition is not there. Like who else do they have? I can't even think of another receiver. Like did they bring
yeah,
in?
but
They lost Darnell Mooney and they brought in who?
I can tell you what the depth chart looks like
If you don't
right
mind.
now. 'Cause underneath him, they have Zachariah Branch,
Oh yeah, their second round
um,
rookie
um, Olamide
Zacchaeus. Is he still
Zacchaeus,
around?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and Johan Dotson. So
Oh,
that's the
just
wide receiver room that he's got around him.
okay.
So
So no
not great.
receiver room. So that's why I maybe this is controversial, and maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit in terms of how excited I am for this player, but
Mhm,
I thought he was looking really good last season before. I
mhm.
mean, Michael Penix was not
Yeah.
accurate, and it was all Drake London going out on these sideline catches and making these plays for the team.
Mhm.
It was not Michael Penix putting the ball where it should have been.
So I'm going to push back a little bit here on this because I feel like, and this is, I'm coming at this from a redraft perspective here right now for sure.
Sure.
Because basically a lot of the criticisms that we just laid at JJ are ones that we just laid at Drake London, except the ones at Drake London are just like cranked up a little bit more, right? So I think, it's a similar situation, but it's maybe perhaps a little bit worse in London's case. And in that case, I'm putting the credence with JJ, where I have more breadth of knowledge of what he can do on his own. I feel a little bit more comfortable in the situation. I like Kyler Murray a little bit better. Those kinds of things. If it's dynasty, I do probably flip it the other way and
I
go
was
with,
just gonna
okay,
ask.
the youth and the potential for growth from London, I like a lot more. So, if I'm thinking about this year only, I'm probably leaning JJ. If I'm thinking into the future, I'm easily thinking Drake London. So, yeah,
Yeah, I was.
there's not a lot to tell between the two of them.
Yeah, I was just looking it up. Just Justin Jefferson will be going into his 28 year this year. Drake London, I
Mm-hmm.
think, just turned 25. So
Yeah,
it's.
yeah.
I
There's a
agree.
little bit more runway on Drake London for things to improve there and for you to get some good value out of
100%.
that.
And I'm happy that we just said all those wonderful things about Justin Jefferson because that is who I have here in my number 7 spot. And
Nice.
this is going to actually round out. Yeah, I feel like I'd be comfortable. Maybe it's a bit more of an amorphous tier here for me, but for me I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jackson Smith and Jigba, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Justin Jefferson, all in my tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a bit more granular in your tier making in terms
Mm-hmm.
of range of draft, I suppose.
Yep.
So let's get into your number 7 player, which is obviously there's going to be a difference in our opinions kind of over the next couple picks because I kind of bounced Drake London up a couple spots.
Yeah, you have him up a couple, but I haven't got to him yet, but I will after this next player.
Okay,
Uh,
hit me.
but in between JJ and Drake London, I have AJ Brown. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here, so maybe you need to tone me down on this one. But I really like the fit that we have this year. And again, I'm thinking more redraft. Like this is an older player. If you're thinking dynasty, then he should not be this high, I don't think. But for this year especially, he's coming into the Patriots. We know the kind of player that he is. They traded for him because he fills a need on their team. And again, Drake May throwing him the ball as well. I just love the fit. I love the potential here. Could it all blow up spectacularly? Yes, of course. I mean, these things can happen. But as of right now, I think there's a lot to really love here. And I think that, there's enough left in the tank in AJ Brown that he could have an absolutely explosive year for the Pats this year. And if you're in, so this is my tier break here. I'm looking at guys who are now probably in the later half of the second round. So if you're in the later half of the second round and maybe you went running back with your early pick, or you're looking to get a stack of two good wide receivers, if he's your first wide receiver off the board, there's a lot of potential there for him to perform as well as some of these higher names. Or if you go receiver and you're looking at a stack of, let's say, like Puka and AJ Brown as your top two wide receivers, that's looking pretty good too. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking around him.
Yeah, it's all music to my ears, Bobby, because I'm kind of counting on AJ Brown to be my Lord and Savior in my keeper league.
Yeah.
He's kind of officially my wide receiver one. I guess I'm a little less high just because I think there's going to be some integration period in the beginning of the season,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so funny how overreactive people are. People are so hungry for football, Bobby. It's disgusting. Like like day one of training camp, he drops a pass from Drake May, and everyone's like, "Okay, well, this was a huge
Yeah.
mistake." Like, come on,
You
people.
know who dropped a lot of passes in training camp?
Jamar
Jamar
Chase.
Chase that one year. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
he wasn't used to the stripe on the ball, or not there being a
Yeah,
stripe on
yeah.
the ball. Like, ugh, anyway. And then of course today, new reports come out that looks like chemistry is building between Drake May and AJ. Guys, we don't need. Honestly, I might turn off notifications, Bobby. It's getting bad. So
The only news I like to pay attention to at this time of the year is injury news. I
yeah,
want to know if somebody's hurt or if somebody's not hurt. Even if they're saying they're not hurt, I don't put too much stock in that. But if they are saying someone picked up an injury in training camp, that I want to know. Apart from that, like, yeah, this is definitely the time of year where a lot of guys have their tires pumped and like they're going to be the next coming of, you know, whoever, and it's all bullshit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
yeah.
hear you, man. So, hey, everybody, be smart, be responsible with your news intake.
The
Um,
only exception to that I'll say is teams that have obvious holes. Maybe pay attention to those teams and what they're doing to fill those holes, because that's where guys like Isaiah Pacheco can kind of emerge and end up being actual
oh
actual
yeah,
things. Uh,
you want to hear the steady beat drum, right? Like it's not just one report. You want to hear steady beat drum throughout the next month. So
mhm,
I love AJ Brown as a player. He's an amplifier on offense. He's a physical force. I was listening to Matt Harmon's Reception Perception podcast, and the way he put it was perfect. He's like, everyone's freaking out that he dropped this crosser, and he's like, they're using AJ Brown in a crossing pattern. Like, that's more eye opening than the fact that he dropped a pass from Drake May on their first day of training camp. Like,
mhm.
the fact that he's going to be able to be used in these ways, I think that he was just so rarely used in Philadelphia is a huge boon to what his production could be if you get this guy, like he's another one of these players that if he gets a slant, he can house that. He's another one of these guys who can just bowl over a DB who's trying to cover him and
Yeah,
put his hand up, and next thing you know, that's a touchdown. Like
yeah,
he's that physical force. So I appreciate you having him at 7. I don't have him at 7, but let's get to number 8 because this is
yeah,
where again I think we're going to have a slight disagreement.
yeah. So I have Drake London here. We've already talked about Drake London, so I don't think I need to say too much. But I do like a lot of him and all those positive things that we said. So
Perfect. I have Nico Collins.
mm,
I think it could be my bias, Bobby, but I do like these big hulking X receivers who also run like the wind, and he's another one of these guys who, on like a per snap basis, on a yards per route basis, was just lighting it up last year. He was just injured a lot last year as well, and CJ Stroud was hurt for about a month there as well. So but actually, that was probably Nico Collins' best stretch of the season when Davis Mills came in and just peppered him with targets. I think he has the physical capability to play the X receiver and do it well. We've seen his ceiling over the course of the last 2 or 3 seasons. He just got paid again. So he is stable. He's solidified in this offense. I think CJ Stroud I'm hesitant to say that he will bounce back in a big way this year, but he's not going to play like he did in those 2 playoff games the entire season. He just won't. Otherwise, he won't be having a job very long in the NFL. So
yeah, for
I think that with a CJ Stroud who has an off season to maybe get his head right. Although, did you see the pictures of him showing up to training camp looking like he was going to 8th grade?
sure.
Like
No, I
he
haven't, but I'm gonna have to go look that up now.
he's wearing this big baggy T-shirt. He's got his backpack on. He shaved his cornrows. Now he's got a short hairstyle. He almost looked like that Bryce Young picture that came out a couple years ago when Bryce Young was showing up to training camp, and he looked like he was just showing up for 6th grade. Like, um, anyway, so I think with a healthier offensive line in Houston, a bounce. Okay, I'll call it a bounce back. Bounce back for
Mhm.
C.J. Stroud. I think Nico Collins puts himself back on the top 10 list here when it comes to
Okay.
his production.
So I'm just I wanted to make sure that I'm remembering this correctly because I was a CJ, I was a Nico Collins owner as well previously in Dynasty. I had the great pleasure of him being my third wide receiver, which was
Yeah,
ridiculous. I was stacked at wide receiver. Um, okay, in 2024, week 5 against Buffalo, he gets injured. Since then, he has not put up more than, I think the highest total is 24 fantasy points in a week. That's his highest total. It's just kind of been meh since then, consistently meh. He hasn't touched over 25 fantasy points in a week since that injury midway through the 2024 season. So what is that? Is that him or him coming back from that injury? Is that the situation around him on the team? I don't know. It's been kind of meh for him for a while. And I think that's why I'm lower on him, is because he was a player that I had that was consistently a little bit disappointing for me. I was always hoping for a little bit more out of Nico Collins, and it just never happened. So maybe the situation is right with the bounce back from Stroud, Tank Dell coming back, and everybody gets their when you get your glue guy back together with the team, things mesh again. Maybe that'll happen. But yeah, I have him a little bit lower on the list. I think just because I was consistently disappointed by him for a period of a couple of years there. So
He was wide receiver 8 last year, Bobby. I don't know if that crept in.
I'm aware of that.
Okay,
I know that, yeah, like it's consistently is certainly there. Like he's not there. I also don't think there's any like absolute goose eggs here
but that's
in this
valuable, and
situation.
especially as we get to
Yeah.
these like fewer and fewer teams are rolling out these 3 or 4 receiver sets. If he's going to be
Mhm.
one of these guys that's out there consistently, as he is your best pass catcher in Houston, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
I
And
think the thing for me though, I like that we're having this debate. This is a good one. I think the thing for me though is if you are looking at him like wide receiver 8 that you have him, that's probably going to be your number one guy. Do you want
uh,
consistently like somewhere in the range between 15 and 20 points to be your number one guy?
okay, I'm looking at his scorecard from last year, and every other week he's putting up over 20, which I'd be very happy with. And yeah,
Mm.
like if he's like, I don't see that many bus games. And of course, Houston was not fully like not a fully operational Death Star last year.
He had
So
over 20 points 5 times last year.
okay, and the rest are 16, 14. Like receiver is volatile to begin with. I think
It is
I'd be
true.
I'd be very happy with that. And sure, if he's my first receiver, I think I'd feel confident with that. Like we're talking about top 12, so assuming
Mhm.
everybody in the league is taking a receiver at some point, I'd be okay with him as my number one. But you're getting him at the back end of the second
Yeah,
round.
it's
To
true.
your
It's
point,
true.
so if you go Puka and Nico Collins, now you're cooking.
Yeah, that's
Jamar
true.
Chase and
If he's your second wide receiver, I like it. I don't know that I would be happy with him as my first name off the board at wide receiver.
okay,
I would want I think, and this is maybe differing fantasy approaches. I want guys who can go out there and just win me a week, who can put up a 30 burger or a 40 burger and just dominate. And I don't look at him as the kind of guy who does that. And again, that could change. And again, there is something to be valued as you're swaying me here a little bit on this. There's something to be valued in the consistency. But yeah, that's why he is. Let's see, 2 spots lower on my list.
I know. Like, so tell me why you hate Nico Collins, Bobby. But
Yeah, I hate him enough to have him 10th.
I know.
Yeah,
Anyway, that was good conversation. I
that was
appreciate
good.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, man. Let's get into number 9 for us.
Yeah, George Pickens, I have as number 9. We've kind of already talked about him in the CD Lamb conversation,
Yeah,
so I don't have too much more to say. I think hampered by CD being in front of him, there is. I'm gonna touch wood, the whole thing, because I'm a CD Lamb owner right now. But if something happens to CD Lamb, obviously the value for him skyrockets to the moon. We saw what he did without Lamb last year.
yeah,
But I think even with Lamb, like there's a lot to like about the player. He is certainly going to get his touches. He is certainly going to put up points. And definitely, yeah, we're firmly in the range now where I'm looking at, maybe this is my second wide receiver off the board, but definitely a serviceable player to get in here. So
yeah. I've seen people go running back, and get Pickens at the beginning of the third too. So
yeah.
are so two questions. First question: he's playing on the franchise tag this year.
Mhm.
If you had George Pickens, do you want him to stay in Dallas, or do you want him to go be the number one somewhere potentially?
Um, I mean, if I'm a dynasty owner and I own George Pickens, I would probably be very happy to see him go somewhere else and be the
Okay.
number one. But you know what? It could be a little bit of a mixed bag with that as well, right? Because he is in a very good offense right now. And if he goes somewhere else and is the number one, that might not be the case, right? So you know, pick your poison. I think I would rather have somebody who is, performing well even as the number two in an offense and still putting up points for me, rather than, okay, yeah, they're the guy, but the team's shit. So,
If George Pickens goes to San Francisco next year, are we happy or sad?
it's a San Fran. Oh, I'd be happy about San Fran.
Okay.
San Fran, I'd be very happy with. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think,
think it depends on the landing spot,
of
right?
course, yeah. Okay, cool. I've got AJ Brown at number 9 for myself. So we've already been over AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm gonna have Pickens in my top 12, my man.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think there's other options I can persuade you with,
Yeah,
but
no, that's fair. That's
I
fair.
think
Well, we'll see as we go along here.
yeah, I do like the contingency value of George Pickens should CD Lamb go down. Vice versa for CD Lamb too, right? Like if George Pickens goes down, now CD Lamb's back to wide receiver one status, right? Potential
Yeah,
wide receiver one overall status.
I think CD could be anyway. Like
Yeah.
he is that kind of guy, right? But yeah, if there's no Pickens pilfering any touches from him, then yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. We've already talked about Nico Collins. Anything else you want to add about Nico Collins here in the 10 spot?
No, again, I will couch a little bit of what I said here. I'll speak more positively of him. I do really like the player for a lot of the things that you said as a talent and as a receiver. I really like him, and I like the way that he plays football. And again, like I'm very happy to have him here on my list. So,
Okay, perfect. Give me a moment here because I'm debating a couple options for my
okay,
10 spot. I'm looking at I'm looking at throwing. See, like on principle, I don't want to put Rasheed. What's his name? Yeah, I don't want to put
Rice.
Rasheed Rice. Like on principle, I don't want to put Rasheed Rice here.
It maybe is the correct player to have in here. I had that debate too, but
Yeah, it's like when he plays, he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy.
yep.
The
Will
consist.
he play?
How long will he play?
Yeah.
When will be the next boneheaded thing he does? And
Will
I
the cop roll up on the field to arrest him at some point during the season?
certainly
If there's
feasible.
any player in the league where that could happen, I feel like it's Rasheed Rice.
Oh, easily. And
Yeah.
you have to you do have to factor that. It,
Hmm.
it maybe we're so human that we understand like that's a risk factor that you just can't really account for. But when
Hmm.
he plays, he is certainly a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football. Fuck
Hmm.
you. I'm gonna go with oh man, yeah. I'm gonna put I'll put my flag here. We've already talked about him. I'm gonna put Chris Olave here.
Okay.
Um, maybe this is a bit rich for folks, but like I said, newly paid, uh, able to win at all levels of the field, a very good vertical threat that was really like lighting the league on fire last year, especially after Rashid Shaheed was traded away. So I'm fully in acknowledgement that his volume could come down from last year with the addition of Jordan Tyson, with the addition of some tight end weapons, with the addition of Travis Etienne, whatever you want to call him. I do believe that there's room there for him to come down a little bit, but I think it's in 2 receiver sets. It'll be him and Jordan Tyson, and Chris Olave has been doing it in this league for a long time. He has a very stable floor. I think he like the fantasy footballers have him graded as like one of these all-time greats when it comes to consistency because he never busts.
Hmm.
You're not seeing the consistent ceiling, but he's never going to bust. And now with maybe a good play caller in Kellen Moore, Tyler Shuck being the quarterback that started to emerge at the end of last season, a good offensive line protecting all this offense. I do think that Chris Olave could return that kind of. I mean, he's going late. I got him in the 4th round of our startup, and
Hmm.
I was very happy. Like, I think
Yeah.
he could be a wide receiver one, and if that's the case, you're getting a discount on a guy that's going 4 rounds into the draft.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I have him on my list. We'll get to him in a couple minutes here, but I like a lot of what you said there. Again, that's another guy where, yeah, if he's falling to you in like the fourth round, great. He's probably is at this point. You're a wide receiver too. Very, very happy with that. But yeah, there's enough question marks that I have around the situation where I'm not willing to go too much higher on him than what I have him. I will say though, yeah, like in a dynasty perspective, how old is he? He's still only
25, 26.
26. He's 26. So there's an amount of runway left with this player in dynasty. I definitely would have him higher.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've already talked about Nico Collins. Let's get to your number 11 player. We're almost there.
My number 11 player is Devonta Smith. I think we've kind of had this conversation a few times. I think I'm just fairly high on the Eagles having a better year this year. I think that's something that has impacted my rankings for running backs. It's impacted my rankings now for a wide receiver. But yeah, I think Devonta Smith is going to be the guy in Philadelphia. I think that offense is going to look a little bit different than what we've seen of them in the past. I'm hoping that they're not going to continue to just bang their head against the wall and do the exact same thing that they've been doing over and over and over again. And I think Smith will benefit from that. Again, objectively, looking at that team, looking at the talent around him, there's a lot to like there. There's a lot that I like in the direction that they've moved. So that's bumping him up to the spot on my list. I think Hurts will be throwing the ball. I think he'll be finding the end zone. Yeah, I like the situation there for him.
This is probably your most aggressive ranking because
I think so. Yeah,
I still don't have him in my top 12, although I am very high on him. So I believe in games without AJ Brown over the past couple seasons, he's been bumping up to like wide receiver 14. I think with a new offensive coordinator and ideally a more healthy offensive line with all those guys coming back, um, I think you it's going to be it's certainly going to be different. Like I don't know what to expect entirely when it comes to this offense. I do expect him to be the focal point though of the pass
oh yeah,
game because Mekhi Lemon's a rookie. Eli Stowers is third on the depth chart when it comes to tight end rankings on their own team right now. It's going to be Devontae Smith as a focal point, and if he's acting in this, Sean Mannion, I think he's the offensive coordinator now, and I couldn't tell you exactly where he came from off the top of my head, but I have a feeling that there's going to be some more from under center. There's going to be more play action, and that's really where Devontae Smith, like his route running,
yeah,
really shines when you get into the play
yeah.
action game. That's the
I,
corners and DBs don't know what to do with them.
I think for me, one of the reasons why I'm putting him here too is just eye test. I watched a lot of Eagles games last year, and a couple factors in this are one, I own Saquon Barkley. Two, I have a bunch of friends who are Eagles fans. And three, I actually owned Devontae Smith in my work league last year as well. So I watched a fair amount of just him himself. And I like him as a player. The actual talent of the player there I think is very high. So yeah, that combined with me liking the direction that the team is moving in, and that it is also seeming to focus in on him as a keystone player, that's why I have him here.
Okay, no, I certainly can't argue it. I think it's just going to come down to Jalen Hurts. So you and I, we've debated Jalen Hurts in the past. I'm
Yeah,
a little more bearish compared to your bullishness on him, but
yeah, yeah, for sure.
time will tell,
Time will
as
tell. Yeah,
as we always like to say. I'm going to put Rashid Rice here,
yeah. I
and
think you have to. Yeah,
and we've already been over it. Like the risk is certainly there, but at least for this season, and if he has such a season that the Chiefs honestly can't do without him, like what are they going to do? Not sign him?
yeah,
Um, like unfortunately, it's people have the memory of a goldfish in this league, and people forget the terrible things that some of these players do pretty quickly.
yeah,
And if the league decides not to suspend him, if the league decides to allow him to play this season and into the future with no suspension, um, you can't not have this player. He is the go-to guy for Patrick Mahomes. Uh, he eats up zone coverage. He is targeted in the end zone. Like Andy Reid makes a point to make sure that he gets targets in the end zone as well. So I'm going to have Rashee Rice here, kind of in the back
Yeah.
end of our top 12, number 11.
If I could squeeze a 13th player into my top 12, I probably would have begrudgingly put him there, but I am happy to find excuses to not put him here as
It's
well. So,
so easy. Like it's so easy not to. And I was shocked when your buddy Jack took him in our dynasty league in the second round. But at the same time, like it's completely. If you just remove everything that we
remove
know about,
everything else. Yeah.
production's there.
Jack's probably not wrong in terms of just the talent, right? And the situation.
Correct.
So, yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do we do with this guy? We put him in number 11 in our
Yeah.
rankings.
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably a top five. Could be nothing. We'll put him at number 11.
Could be, yeah. Could be in jail. Who knows?
Okay.
Um,
Number 12. Go ahead,
so
Bobby.
yeah, to round out my list, we've already talked about him, so I can be a little bit brief. Chris Olave. I think this is a player. I'll criticize him a little bit. And again, maybe I don't I hate consistency, quote unquote. But yeah, I just don't see the high swing upside for him as consistency, and so that's why I have him down here. Like, yes, the consistency is great. Yes, it's good to have a reliable player on week to week. But the reason that he's not higher is that I don't see the explosive potential to like go out there and put up massive points. Um, Having said that, I really like the player. I really like the player, and I wish the Saints had a better team around him. And if they did, then he would massively shoot up my rankings. If so, if this is dynasty, then he is a player that I am looking at far higher. I
Yeah.
quite like the player.
What don't you like about the New Orleans Saints offense?
Um,
They
well, let
they
me
have a
just
lot of
go through.
pieces. Yeah, they have a lot of
They have a
pieces.
lot of pieces, and maybe I will come to like them this year. That is something that I am open to. I'm willing to have that moment. Um,
As as we
Travis Achan
as we roll off of our
knew that.
Giants love, we can roll on to the New
Yeah,
Orleans Saints love.
yeah. I'm not sold on quarterback for them yet.
Yeah.
Still some question marks there. Achan's new. Kamara's old. There's nothing else that I'm excited about in that wide receiver room other than Olave. I like the tight ends that they have, but like, okay, I like their tight ends. That's not a lot to get excited about. So yeah, I think there's just a lot that needs to come together there for me and that I need to see
Okay.
click and be excited about.
Okay. And to be fair, when they went on their big streak towards the tail end of the season last year, where I think they finished 5-1, it was against a lot of NFC South teams. It was against some poor competition. So if they could carry that over another year in the system and everything else, all the usual sayings that we say, then
Mhm.
I personally have a lot of faith in Chris Olave. Up a couple spaces from you, you at least have the wherewithal to keep him in the top 12. I appreciate that, and I am going to just counter here. As it's funny we mentioned the Giants, I'm going to put Malik Neighbors here, both for like first of all, if he doesn't have this ACL injury, where is he?
If he doesn't have the ACL injury, I am probably looking at him top five.
I'd say top three. Like
Yeah, maybe
with
even that high. Yeah, easy top five, maybe top three. Yeah,
with the
player's
addition
great.
with the additions they've brought in, just to help things around him, plus the improved offensive line. Jackson Dart kind of emerging a little bit last season. There's a lot to love here when it comes to Malik Neighbors. He's already running exercises and drills and routes on the side of the field right now. He's avoided the pup like we talked about last episode. It's trending the right way, and I am
Yeah.
cautiously optimistic about his upcoming season. He could be a game changer much earlier than we potentially thought. I know the Giants without him. It looks pretty bleak. The Giants with him, all of a sudden, all these receiving types fit into the correct pieces places, and I think the offense starts to look a lot different when he is available. And again,
Yeah,
if
for
if, it,
sure.
if it's not this season, next season if he can stay healthy. I hate saying that, like we talked about, but a healthy Malik Neighbors is a top five receiver in this league. So we've seen it.
Oh, for sure.
We hope to see more.
I'll say just kind of to tack on to that, in a redraft situation, he will win people leagues, I think, if you get him in the right spot.
Like we said, yeah.
I think if you're reaching for him, if you're drafting him, like if you're picking him in the 12th spot, he's probably not winning you the league. But if he falls a little bit to you, then it can be an absolute steal, I feel. Because then you just got to survive the first, couple weeks where he's maybe not back to himself. But, even if he's, a portion of himself by the end of the year this year, he could absolutely be tearing things up. And, again, let's say he is your wide receiver too, or you go, running back, quarterback, and he's your, taken later on first wide receiver, can pay a lot of dividends. So, yeah, you have to get him in the right spot, but I think he could absolutely win leagues this year.
Yeah, and as others have said, if he ends up on the pup, you just put him on IR. You're not getting a zero in that starting roster spot. You can just plug him in
Yeah,
when he's ready and when he starts to show up.
pick
So,
up somebody. Yeah, yeah.
uh, excellent. That's our top 12. I'm going to quickly run through mine. You could quickly run through yours. Tier 1 for me, Puka Nakua, Jamar Chase. Tier 2, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba. CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Justin Jefferson. Tier 3, Nico Collins, AJ Brown, Chris Olave. Tier 4, Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors. Go ahead, Bobby.
Tier 0, Jamar Chase. Tier 1, Puka Nakua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN. Tier 2, CeeDee Lamb, JJ. Tier 3, AJ Brown, Drake London, Pickens, Collins. And then Tier 4, Devontae Smith and Chris Olave.
Okay, who did we snub? Give me one name that you think that should be on this list that if we had one more spot.
I, I I'm glad that our lists are different enough from each other, because my snubs were very much Rashee Rice and Malik Neighbors. Like those would be the first names that I would have mentioned. If I had to pick somebody else, okay, a couple names that you could throw in there. Garrett Wilson is somebody who would probably be in my next few picks. I don't like that though. There's a lot that I don't like about a player on the Jets, despite the fact I own him. Zay Flowers is another name that's fairly
That's
high in ADP. Um, there's a lot that I don't like about him as well. So I think justifiably not on these lists, but yeah, a lot of people would look at that as a snub for sure.
Zay Flowers was the name that I was going to mention, and I was looking at him at number 11. Again, Malik Neighbors healthy, he's all the way up there, but Zay Flowers was a top 12 receiver last year. Although, I mean, every argument could be made against him. He's never targeted in the red zone. I think he has a career high of 5 touchdowns in a season. Inconsistent week to week. He'll have his boom weeks, but they're far and few between. Even though he had a fantastic catch number and a fantastic yardage number last year. I'm going to pull it up really quick just to give some perspective, because you look at that production and you say, hey, I like that. I could get by with that. He finished with, like, man, I did not know this. He finished with 86 catches for 1,211 yards and 5 touchdowns. And this was certainly his best season so far. In PPR, he finishes wide receiver 7. Like, that's all well and good, but the way you got there does not feel good, I think, at the end of the day. Like, you talk about one of those spike weeks, and we look at, like, I think we talked about this last week. He had a huge week 1 against Buffalo, 28 points in that huge shootout between Buffalo and Baltimore. And then he did not eclipse 15 points again until week
Yeah,
14, and by then he had already submarined your season in some way. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, again, not to brag about my former dynasty team, but that's why I wrote the bench on my
yeah,
wide receiver stash
wide receiver, wide
team.
receiver
I
7 on
have,
the season doesn't matter. It it's
yeah,
it,
yeah.
what I,
Good.
it's interesting. Like this is it's an indication of where the league's kind of headed these past couple seasons. Like pass rate was down, um, wide receiver scoring was down as a result. Just such a big emphasis on running back and tight end kind of forward leading offenses. It's going to be important to make sure you have as many of these top receiver types, and you have to look at, are they playing in two receiver sets? If they're not, you are truly rolling the dice with your receiver types.
So grand strategy here, like obviously the top guys are the top guys, and they're the top guys for the reasons that they are. Um, would you lean towards maybe doing a running back situation this year and just try to make do at wide receiver? Or do you think it's important to go out and get one of those top guys because they are rare?
So I think you need to leave the first two rounds with a running back, just for your own sanity, because once you get outside those first two rounds, it we looked at this last week when we look at our running back rankings. By the end of the second round, you're already having to figure out, do I want Jeremiah Love or Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry? At least in like our dynasty setups, like that's tough to
Mm-hmm.
stomach, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
my so the flip side of that is I kind of operated in that mentality, Bobby, where I think there was a plethora of wide receivers. I waited on receiver. I went Jameer Gibbs, Josh Allen, and then I think Chris Olave was my first receiver in the at the top of the third round, and
Yeah.
I was okay with that. I do like the makeup of my team. I think you want to stay balanced. Like I don't think it's a year where you want to go too far one way or the other, because I think the supply there's a perceived supply of wide receivers that I think people ex- expand in their heads of like viable wide receivers. I think the truth
Mm-hmm.
is now that that number has actually shrunk, and that's why there's even though there's this rush to get running backs in the first two or three rounds, I think you still need a top end wide receiver if you're gonna like the makeup of your team, because
Yeah.
if you get through the first two or three rounds without a wide receiver, the tiers start to look pretty scary in my opinion.
I think it's a year. So building off of that, I think it is a year, especially in a redraft league, where you can perhaps fade those one-off positions a little bit more. Maybe not quite tight end as much as quarterback, but I think there's a lot of value to be had deep at quarterback this year. Like going back to our quarterback rankings from a few weeks ago, your quarterback rankings,
Hmm.
I would be happy with every one of the 10 players that you put as my top quarterback,
Yeah.
every single one of them. And there's actually a few guys not on there that I would also be happy with.
Right.
So a lot of depth there. So I think probably the kind of year where you got to get your skill position guys and wait on quarterback.
Hmm.
Be careful about where you take the tight end because yes, there are some good ones that'll maybe be a game breaker for you, but going back to our tight end list, there's only a couple of them that that fits the name for, and after those guys are gone, you might as well wait, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to your previous point, if you want to go running back, and then maybe a onesie somewhere in there, and you're looking in the fourth round, are you going to be comfortable with Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, uh, Devontae Smith, Terry McLaurin, Tet McMillan, T Higgins? Like those are the receivers you're going to look at in the fourth round. If you can smash those running back picks, and you're getting a onesie, maybe you end up with a
Mhm.
Brock Bowers or a Trey McBride, and you go running back Trey McBride, Brock Bowers slash whatever, and then you go running back again. You might be able to squint and say that's okay. I do like a Buka in the
Mhm.
fourth round, but at the same time, there's still question marks. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
it's going to depend on how it all comes out, right? Like
Let the
every draft
draft
is
come to
different.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, let the draft come to you. Yeah.
that's it, man. Awesome. Like that was a really fun episode. That's going to do it for us, everybody. Let's get out of here. We're getting ready for the long weekend. You got any plans, Bobby?
Yeah, we're heading to well, first to Montreal, and then we're off on a bit of a Quebec vacation. And literally, Quebec, we're
Amazing.
going to Quebec City for a few days. So very excited for that. It's gonna be good.
Sounds awesome, man. Enjoy. And we're just heading up north doing the cottage thing. So
Love
looking
it.
forward to an extended cottage visit. It's going to be great. Oh, man. Okay. Uh, thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Let us know if we made a mistake. I'm sure we did. And
I'm sure we did.
I'm sure we did. And make sure you all stay tuned for probably, I don't know, like we got Monday off this coming Monday, Bobby. Maybe we do an episode after the Hall of Fame game, and we do our own Hall of Fame, our first ballot fantasy Hall of Fame
Yeah,
episode.
I am super excited for that conversation. So yeah, look forward to that, everybody.
Excellent. Stay safe out there, everybody. Enjoy the long weekend if you're here in Canada, and we will be back in a couple weeks. Enjoy. Peace.